Welcome to Literary AF Podcast.
Oh, good day, mates. Sorry, I promised Daddy I thought of a good opening goof, but instead I just said, oi, good day, mates.
Yeah, that's what took you so long.
Welcome to Literary AF Podcast, the number one literature podcast in all of our basement.
Yeah.
I can't even say all of Winnipeg because of our rivals' time to read.
Those rivals at the library.
We should do some housekeeping up front.
Okay.
First off, we have dozens of downloads, and we have to say we are so honored that we're now famous.
I think we broke 50 like 2 days ago.
Boom, halfway to 100, which is halfway to 1,000. Nope. That's not math.
Not quite.
We're doing good.
Yeah, this is pretty solid.
And so if you're a company out there who's looking for a hot up-and-coming podcast that you can throw money at, we are open to having money thrown at us. But we refuse to promote anything, so you just have to give us the money for fun. What are we talking about today, Danny?
Today, we're going to be talking about the second book in the Twilight Saga, New Moon.
We are covering the greatest love story of our generation.
No.
Topped only by 50 Shades of Grey.
No.
Better than Romeo and Juliet, which will come up during this podcast.
Will come up later.
Better than Pride and Prejudice. Better than Casablanca. Better than Gone with the Wind. It's Twilight Part 2.
To be fair, Gone with the Wind is not a great romance.
But, yeah, because the characters are Scarlett's meant to be unlikable.
She's extremely unlikable. And, have you seen it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I would not consider that a romance.
Oh, but it is. Well, I have never read the book, but at least the movie, Clark Gable is, he's such a man.
Well, I mean, you can have an attractive hero, and it still isn't a romance.
Moving on. Wait, actually, you could say that there's a lot of parallels between Gone with the Wind and this book.
I suppose you could, yeah.
If you consider Clark Gable's character to be Jacob, and that one random army dude who she's in love with forever to be Edward.
Okay, sure.
Let's start with a plot summary that I will try not to interrupt this time. If you listened to our last episode, which you should, come on.
Please.
We tried to do a plot summary, and I had to interrupt every 5 seconds to be like, let's talk about how Bella sucks.
Well, I'll make this quick because there's not a whole lot to talk about this time.
Yeah.
New Moon opens 2 months after the end of Twilight. It is... What is it? I think it's September. Bella's birthday. And she told everybody she doesn't want any parties, she doesn't want any presents, she wants nothing to do with her birthday because it means now she's 18, which means that she's officially forever older than Edward is. And anyways, because she doesn't want a party, Edward obviously sets up a party with the Cullens. And
well, isn't it something because Alice never got to have a birthday party or something?
It's because the Cullens don't celebrate birthdays because they're immortal. I mean, you can still celebrate your birthday when you're immortal. It's just,
Yeah, I reread a chapter summary because I didn't feel like rereading this entire book. I have read this before.
Mm-hmm.
But in the chapter summary it was saying that Alice was the one who wanted to throw it because they don't celebrate birthdays and she's the one who misses birthday parties the most or something like that.
Which is, I don't know, because Alice doesn't have any memory of her time before she was turned into a vampire.
And that's what it is, because she never remembered having her own birthday party.
Right.
So she wants to experience this.
Right. So they get the Cullens all hyped up for Bella's birthday that she really doesn't want to have. And she doesn't want to go to the party. Edward drags her to the party anyways. And they give her some presents. And Bella gets a paper cut opening one of the presents because of course she does.
Of course she does.
And she cuts her finger and there's a drop of blood. And that immediately sets off Jasper. And Jasper tries to bite Bella. Edward fights Jasper. And then all the Cullens have to leave the room. Oh, Edward, in order to save Bella from Jasper, pushes Bella over, knocks over the table, knocks over all the glass, and Bella, lands in the glass because Edward just shoved her over.
There are multiple instances of two men fighting over Bella
all the time
in this story.
Yes.
And the rest of the series.
The whole series.
In this story specifically, there are multiple times where it happens. Okay, so that's like chapter 1. Let's do the rest quicker.
Okay. Edward feels guilty that Bella almost got killed by Jasper, so he decides to break up with her. And that is like, she doesn't like it at all, of course.
Yeah.
And her response to that is to, I'm going to come back to this, I'm going to talk about her response later.
Yeah, we're just trying to move through the plot as quick as we can.
So Edward leaves her, and there's like 5 months of she's just extremely depressed. She's not talking to any of her friends. She's not going out anymore.
Yeah, there are blank pages in the actual book to summarize the passing of time.
The pages just say like January, February on them. That's it. They're basically blank pages. And eventually she starts hanging out with Jacob, who was from the first book. He was the boy who mentioned vampires to her originally.
Yeah, from La Push.
And Jacob becomes like her new best friend. And she starts coming out of her shell again, starts opening up and going out. But she definitely leads Jacob into like it feels like a romantic relationship. But every time Jacob's like, I really like you, Bella's like, oh, sorry, I'm broken. I can't love ever again.
But then she's also like, I like the way how warm your body feels and stuff like that.
She's also like I have more to say on this later because there's a lot of stuff that she says about Jacob.
Yeah. She also gets into a suicidal, not really suicidal, but it's a risk-taking thing.
Yeah, she becomes an adrenaline junkie.
Because whenever there's one time where she almost gets hurt or almost dies or something, and then she feels Edward's presence or hears his voice or something in her head.
She passes a pack of strangers on the street.
And she thinks one of them is the guy from the first book, right?
And she's like, oh no, they're dangerous. And then Edward's voice in her head is like, Bella, that's dangerous. And it sets off this chain reaction of, oh, if I do dangerous stuff, I'll hear Edward's voice in my head, and then...
Which helps soothe her throbbing love hole.
Throbbing love hole.
We'll come back to the hole in a second. We're not making that up to be gross. It's a thing from the book.
No. So, Edward and Bella have like this weird, we're best friends, Jacob and Bella. And Jacob's like, I'm in love with you, and Bella's like, I'm so damaged, I can never be in love ever again. And then Jacob just drops off the face of the earth. And it turns out that Jacob's a werewolf, and he's in a pack of werewolves. And the werewolves obviously are like arch enemies of the vampires.
Yeah. So. The book sets it up a little better than that with there's this gang of boys that go around the Indian Reserve.
Yeah.
And
Sam Yuli's gang.
Yeah, and Bella's like afraid that they're gonna like get Jacob.
She thinks they're like a cult and that they're brainwashing the other boys because one of Jacob's friends like stops talking to Jacob and joins this gang, and Jacob's like, I'm scared of them because I think they're brainwashing everybody. And then Jacob stops talking to Bella and joins this gang, and this is the whole back and forth of, oh no, Jacob's been brainwashed and he doesn't want to be my friend anymore because I've keep turning him down and then leading him on and then turning him down again. And why does he want to talk to me anymore?
Yeah, but really what happened is his wolf blood.
Yeah, he turned into a werewolf.
He's a werewolf now.
Yeah. And they don't want him hanging out with Bella anymore, partially because of her connection to the Cullens. Let's see.
Then she finds the meadow where her and Edward had their moment.
She goes back to the meadow where they have their moment, and she runs into Laurent, who is not the vampire from the last book. We did get that wrong. The vampire from the last book who was trying to kill Bella, his name was James, and he was the leader of the three-man coven.
That's right, and Laurent was his friend,
yes,
who now shows up in this book and tries to kill Bella.
Yes, they both do, actually. Laurent and Victoria both show up. Laurent tries to kill Bella, and then a giant pack of extremely large wolves chase him off of the La Push land. And I wonder why there's so many large wolves on this land. Because Bella can't put 1 and 2 together, I guess.
The same number of wolves as there are boys in that gang.
This wolf has oddly intelligent eyes, and he's looking right at me. I wonder what his deal is.
Jacob.
He looks like Jacob. So they chase off and kill Laurent off screen, which is another thing that annoys me is every time there's a big fight or any kind of cool action, it happens off screen. And then they find out that Victoria is also hanging around in the territory. Victoria was mate to James, and Victoria wants to kill Bella because Edward killed James.
Yeah,
as
which
like a revenge situation.
Really sets up the third book.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Yes.
And then Alice shows up at the house.
Well, because Bella, the
Bella
adrenaline junkie,
does the cliff diving.
she does a
thing.
cliff diving thing, and she almost drowns. There's like a huge passage where she just gives up trying to swim to the surface because she can't, because she was an idiot and decided to try cliff jumping by herself. And Alice sees this in a vision.
Yeah.
And Alice thinks that she tried to kill herself, so Alice goes back to Forks to see what happened.
And meanwhile, Bella was saved by Jacob.
Yes.
And that's part of the problem is Alice doesn't realize this because Alice can't see
Werewolves. Right.
in her visions.
Yeah.
The vampire powers don't work on werewolves because
Apparently,
of course
yeah.
they don't.
Of course not. So Alice tells Rosalie what she saw, and then Rosalie tells Edward what Alice saw.
And then Edward tries to phone the house,
Yes.
but Jacob picks up the phone.
Yeah.
And then Edward says, "Is Charlie there?" And Jacob says, "No, he's at a funeral."
Yes, because one of Charlie's friends coincidentally dies like 2 days beforehand to set up this whole thing.
So that sets off...
Edward thinks she's dead, so he's going to go kill himself.
And the only way you can kill yourself as a vampire is obviously to walk out in the middle of a village with your chest exposed and show your glittering to the world so that the evil vampires will come and kill you.
There's the Volturi, which is like the ruling family of vampires. And Edward's method of suicide is making a big display to piss them off, and then they'll kill him because he sparkled in the sunlight. And then Alice drags Bella to Italy, and they save Edward from exposing his gorgeous body to the sunlight. And then they talk to the Volturi for a little bit, and then Bella goes back home.
Yeah, the Volturi are like, she knows too much about vampires, so you guys have to turn her.
Yep.
And they're like, we might. And they're like, well, do it sooner or later, or else we're going to come for you.
Yep. And then Bella gets back home, and Edward's like, I can't live without you, so we're all moving back to Forks. And Jacob is like, I can't believe you're back with that bloodsucker again. And then end. That's about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can think of 3 things off the top of my head that I definitely want to address over this
Bella's
podcast.
gaping love hole.
Let's talk about the whole. So, okay, so I just have the chapter by chapter summary.
Yep.
So you have firsthand knowledge of it.
Yes.
Do you have any quotes lined up about the whole?
I don't think I marked any quotes about the whole.
Well, Stephanie, from what I remember, and from you can help correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
But they keep referring to the hole left in Bella's heart from Edward leaving.
Just this giant hole in her chest. Not even specifically her heart, just her chest is a giant hole.
And they keep saying Bella's hole, or like my hole. Or
My
whatever.
hole.
And
Yeah, the ripped edges of my hole.
the chapter summary that I read called it Bella's throbbing love hole. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, why is the person writing this doing this? And then I found out it's because Stephanie Meyer was
Oh, it was written into the
basically
book.
doing that.
They didn't use the exact words, gaping love hole, but she did use the words gaping hole, burning hole, open wound. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. Also, something we didn't mention, but I remember reading in the summary.
Mm-hmm.
Edward didn't want to turn Bella because he was afraid that she would no longer go to the afterlife.
Yes, he didn't want to destroy her soul.
I feel like this is where the author's Mormonism kind of creeps into the book a little.
Absolutely.
Because it's like Edward is so controlling that he's deciding Bella's eternal fate.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well, and the thing about that is, like, if she's turned into a vampire, she's not going to die. So why are you so concerned about the potential afterlife? If everything goes according to plan, you'll never have to be worried about that.
yeah, that's true. Like, part of the whole vampire mystique is that
They live forever.
yeah, but
Yeah.
they're also like their souls are prevented from getting into heaven. Like if you're
Right.
looking at it from a religious aspect,
Right.
but also they think that because their life is going on indefinitely, that they don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And then when the vampire is inevitably like met with a hunter or a vampire slayer, it's like that's when they're like suddenly confronted with the fact that's like, oh no.
Oh, I think I do have something about this. This actually might come up in the book.
But it's weird that that's what Edward primarily cares about.
It's Bella's afterlife, yeah.
Bella's mortality.
The thing, I actually made a note about this in my notebook, is Bella's mortality it comes off really strong at the end of this book, where Bella's mortality is an analogy for sex.
Yeah.
And it's constantly being argued over with Edward and Jacob, and Bella has like almost no say in what happens to this. And it really, really shows up when Edward is like, I won't bite you until after we're married.
Oh, wow, that's so true. It's
Yeah.
like her humanity is her virginity.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. At the end of the book, Edward says, we need to get married before I'll bite you. Carlisle is offered to bite her when she's done graduating school.
Like prima nocta?
But she really, really wants Edward to do it for her.
Oh.
And Edward's restriction is that they have to be married before he will bite her.
If you carry that metaphor like further, how creepy is it that Carlisle's converted all these teens? He's just some creepy doctor.
I'd
keeps
let
stealing
Carlisle bite
teens.
me. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, so, sorry, my brain just malfunctioned. Editing Sheldon, please remove this part. What should we talk about? Romeo and Juliet?
We could talk about Romeo and Juliet, yeah.
It is featured heavily in this book.
Extremely heavily in this book. The evening before Bella's birthday party, she and Edward watch Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
And she brings it up over and over and over again throughout the book. Edward's her Romeo, she's Juliet. She keeps comparing Jacob to... Paris, yeah. And there's like a long paragraph that she talks about where she's like, well, what if Juliet had just married Paris?
Yeah, the chapter summary I was reading goes into detail into that part. And
I missed that chapter when I was marking my book, so I didn't actually...
Oh, that's fine. But it's just talking about how, like, you know, the book never deals, or Romeo and Juliet never deals with the idea of what happens if Romeo is gone and Juliet is left with Paris. Like, is it wrong for her to go for Paris?
Yeah, I distinctly remember reading this chapter.
She can't, what is it, like, what are the rules for kissing someone when your true love is already gone? And, like, she could love Jacob, but never to the level that she loves Edward.
Yeah, that's like her whole thing. It's like, Jacob loves me a lot, and I can pretend to love him back, but I'll never love him back like I love Edward.
See, and this is why I hate this book.
Yeah.
I'm Team Jacob. No.
I was Team Jacob up until the end, and I will explain why after you.
Oh, okay.
Why you?
I don't remember the ending, so I might be wrong.
Okay.
But my thing was always, Edward treats Bella poorly.
Yes.
And he leaves Bella.
Yes.
He's very controlling, and
Yes.
he basically makes the decision for Bella that he's, that she can't be with him anymore.
Yes.
Bella goes through these months of heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I just realized as I'm talking that my position is Charlie, like the dad.
I'm going to add to that when you're done, for sure.
Okay.
I got lots to say about this.
Narratively and, like, character-wise, it would be so much more rewarding if Bella learned to, like, love herself and to, like, open herself up to new possibilities, i.e. Jacob.
Be a strong, independent woman, Bella.
Well,
You
that would
can
have
do
been
it.
good, too, if she dumped both of them. But,
Yeah.
like, or even if she went with Mike, I think that would have been a real change-up. But just the idea of, like, this person wrecked her life.
Yes.
And she's so set on this, like, well, if I can't be with him, I'm doomed. I might
I
as
can
well
never
die.
be with anybody else
I might as well
ever
wander
again.
into the woods until I get eaten by a bear. Like,
Oh, man.
she gives up all hope. And narratively, like, character, like, her arc would have made so much more sense if she had learned to move past Edward. But instead, she just ends up exactly where she is at the start of the
Yeah,
novel.
this book goes nowhere.
Other than introducing Jacob and the werewolves,
Yeah.
this is one of those sequels that could have been not there and still the series would have made sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, what were you going to say about Charlie or something?
Well, I've got a little bit. I've got, I marked off here where, just after Edward breaks up with Bella, he leaves, he says, like, take care of yourself, and then he disappears.
Yeah.
And then he disappears, like, completely, because he's a vampire. He moves super fast. And she just walks into the woods after him.
Yeah.
It says, with shaky legs, ignoring the fact that my action was useless, I followed him into the forest. The evidence of his path had disappeared instantly. There were no footprints, the leaves were still again, but I walked forward without thinking. I could not do anything else. I had to keep moving. If I stopped looking for him, it was over. Love, life, meaning, over. I walked, and time made no sense. I pushed slowly through the thick undergrowth, and it was hours passing, but also only seconds. Maybe it felt like time had frozen, because the forest looked the same no matter how far I went. I started to worry that I was traveling in a circle, a very small circle at that, but I kept going. I stumbled often, and as it grew darker and darker, I fell often. Finally, I tripped over something. It was black now. I had no idea what caught my foot, and I stayed down. I rolled onto my side so that I could breathe and curled up in the wet bracken. And then she just lays there. She lays there for hours until a hunting party has to find her and carry her back to the house. She's out there until like 3 a.m.
Yeah, that's such a Bella thing to do.
She falls asleep in the mud and then is found by a hunting party.
What were you going to say about Charlie, though, before?
Charlie.
Yeah.
I like Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm also on Charlie's side for this.
Yes, okay.
Charlie tries so hard. Bless him. He just wants Bella to be happy.
I know.
And a lot of people were like, why would Charlie let her get so depressed for so long? If Edward left, he should take her to a therapist. He tried. And that's something that a lot of people gloss over when they talk about Charlie, is that he tried to take her to a therapist. He tried to send her to live in Florida. He did everything that he could as a father. And I am trying to find a spot that I marked here. There was a pause while the cupboard door was closed and a dial on the stove was clicked off. I waited, cringing. I'd never felt so helpless, Charlie began slowly. I didn't know what to do. That first week, I thought I was going to have to hospitalize her. She wouldn't eat, she wouldn't drink, she wouldn't move. Dr. Durandi was throwing around words like catatonic, but I didn't let him up to see her. I was afraid it would scare her. She snapped out of it, though. This is Alice. I had Renee come to take her to Florida. I just didn't want to be the one. If she had to go to a hospital or something, I hoped that being with her mother would help. But when we started packing her clothes, she woke up with a vengeance. I'd never seen Bella throw a fit like that. And then it goes on to say that she started screaming and yelling and throwing things around, and eventually they left her here. And Charlie talks about how she wouldn't do this or wouldn't do that, and she was like dead inside, and all he did for months and months was worry about her.
Yeah.
He feels like the only one who actually cares about Bella.
Yeah, that's true. And then what were you going to say before about, because I said I was Team Jacob and you said you were up until the end?
Okay, yeah. So I felt for Jacob for a while because he's Bella's best friend and he pulled her out of the depression, and by all accounts, she was leading him on. And I don't like the idea that, I've been friend zoned or whatever, but there's a point where Bella keeps saying like, oh, we went on a date, oh, we went on another date, and she says things like this to Jacob, she says it to Mike, and then when she's out with Jacob, she's like, I can't actually be in a relationship with you. And when they're fighting and Jacob has stopped talking to her because he's having werewolf problems, he leaves and he says, I can't see you anymore, Bella. And Bella's response is, you're breaking up with me. And she's like, I can change, I can be what you want, I can be the relationship that you want, now that Jacob has decided that he can't spend that kind of time with her. So I felt for him. But then at the end of the book, when Bella decides to go save Edward, Jacob, I understand he doesn't like the vampires, but he stops talking to Bella completely. And he starts telling her secrets, I guess, to Charlie in hopes to get her in trouble. Like, they had these motorcycles. Yeah. And they were supposed to be secret, because if Charlie found out, he would kill Bella. And in order to punish Bella for going back to Edward, he gives Charlie Bella's motorcycle. And he acts like a complete prick because she didn't pick him. And I don't know. Up until that point, like, he went from being, sad best friend to actually antagonizing, I guess.
Oh, it's so juvenile.
It is, absolutely it is. Which I guess he's 16, it makes sense. But, I don't know. That's the point where Jacob lost me as a character, was when he started, like, trying to hurt Bella on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know, I was frustrated with Bella at that point enough where I didn't really care, and I was like,
They all suck, don't get me wrong. They're all
Yeah.
terrible. But I had been more, oh, I like Jacob up until that point.
yeah, I know, I don't like, I don't know. Then the other thing I want to talk about is, so in the last episode we mentioned how at the end of the book, Stephanie Meyer manages to like sidestep the action or like to have it all take place where nobody can see.
Yes.
This one I think is even worse.
Yeah.
Because in the other one the action happens, it just happens while Bella's unconscious.
Yes.
In this one, it sets up the action. It sets up, oh, there's going to be a fight with all these like evil vampires, and the evil vampires have taken Bella. But then they just like have a short conversation, and it's like, okay, well, do this or else you'll be in trouble later, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's the climax of the book.
Yeah, there's Laurent, who's about to kill Bella. He gets chased off screen. He dies. There's Victoria, who's hunting Bella, who you never see once during the book because she keeps getting chased away by the werewolves. Yeah. She doesn't become a problem. And then there's Volturi, who are threatening Bella, but not really, and that's just resolved with like a simple conversation. She goes home. There's no big conflict in this story other than Edward left.
It's so frustrating because the Volturi are set up as like this like horrible and like super dangerous faction of vampires.
Yes.
And it'd be like, I'd see the equivalent of being like a Star Wars movie where it's like talking about how bad the Empire is and how strong Darth Vader is, and then he like confronts Luke, and then he's like, all right, well, you might want to consider turning to the dark side, or else
exactly what
it could cause some problems for you later.
Well, you know, we're going to check on you in about 20 years and make sure you actually converted to the dark side. And if you didn't, then we'll kill you. But, you know,
then you're in trouble.
That's basically what happens there.
Okay, what else is there to even talk about this book? I found this one to be extremely boring when I first read it.
Yes.
Because for the longest time in this book, nothing happens. Bella is just sad.
Yes.
She's just talking about how her hole in her chest, her gaping hole.
Yep.
Jacob's around, and she's like, but it's like, it's not like it's never done as like a love story between her and Jacob, which is, I think, like such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's why teens are reading these books, is because it's like, you know, supernatural love stories.
Yes.
But this one's like, no, he's just my friend. I don't like him that way, but do I like him that way? I don't think so, no.
Here's a quote from that. How much had I wished that Jacob Black had been born my brother, my flesh and blood brother, so that I would have a legitimate claim on him and still left me free of any blame. Heaven knows I would never have wanted to use Jacob, but I couldn't help but interpret the guilt I felt now to mean that I had.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't... You were saying this one's written better than the first one?
It is, yes. Okay. I feel like this is a little less rambly.
Yeah, the first one is very rambly.
The first one goes on and on and on. I mean, this is a 400-page book about nothing, but it still felt more coherent.
Yeah.
And there were moments, like there was a moment here that I marked down that had like a general, it genuinely made me go, who? Bella.
Excuse me, genuinely made you do what?
Bella wakes up in the middle of the night, and she's not sure why, because she usually sleeps through the whole night, except for when she wakes up screaming because Edward left her. But she stops screaming when she becomes friends with Jacob, so that fixes that hole.
That's one hole filled.
I wasn't sure when I woke in the dark if I had just begun crying or if the tears had begun to run while I slept and simply continued now. I stared at my dark ceiling. I could feel that it was maybe the middle of the night. I was still half asleep, maybe more than half. I closed my eyes and wearily prayed for a dreamless sleep. That's when I heard the noise that must have wakened me in the first place. Something sharp scraped along the length of my window with a high-pitched squeal, like fingernails against the glass. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of creepy. That's pretty good.
That works.
But then it just turned out to be Jacob, and I lost all interest again.
Well, she does that numerous times, even from just rereading the chapter summary.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she sees red hair in the car. It's Victoria. Oh, no, it's just Alice.
Yeah.
Or, oh, it's scraping at the window. No, it's just Jacob.
It's just Jacob.
Oh, it's a giant bear in the woods. Come to eat me.
Oh, it's a werewolf. It's also just Jacob.
The werewolves and their friends, and it's Jacob.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a master of...
Oh, it's just Jacob.
Bait and switch.
Yep.
Okay, what else? approaching the end of our time. What else is there to mention quick?
We mentioned Romeo and Juliet, and Bella keeps comparing Jacob to... I keep wanting to call him Pallet, but that's not the right name.
No, it's Paris. But it's not even a good comparison.
No.
This book is not Romeo and Juliet whatsoever.
Absolutely not at all.
Like, at least the last book had the Wuthering Heights comparisons and
Yes.
the Pride and Prejudice comparisons, and you can kind of sort of almost make them work. But in Romeo and Juliet is like a totally different story than what's going on in New Moon.
I have something that didn't make sense here. Was just Edward says they have a plan to not change Bella into a vampire, and he's like, well, vampire powers don't work on you, so they'll never be able to track you down. And he says it'll be like looking for a piece of straw in a haystack. But I'm pretty sure that haystacks are entirely composed of straw.
No, straw is different than
Is
hay,
it?
but it should be a needle in a haystack.
That's what I thought. I
Straw in
thought
a
haystacks were made
haystack.
of straw, so my bad. But I was pretty sure the phrase was needle in a haystack,
It
regardless.
is needle in a haystack. Hay is from grass, straw is from wheat,
Oh,
and straw is like what animals sleep in, and hay is what animals eat.
well, there you go. The more you know.
That is farm lessons from Sheldon.
Oh, here's something that I really did not like. Edward saves Bella from the Volturi. They go back to Charlie's house, and she falls asleep, wakes up in her bed, and there's like 3 pages of Bella being like, oh, I'm dreaming. And it goes on and on and on about, oh, I'm dreaming, Edward's not really here, it's just another delusion, which is really, really annoying when you know already that Edward's right there, it's not a delusion. So why does it need to go on for so many pages of, oh, I died when I jumped off the cliff, nothing has happened. And you just spent the last like 2 chapters reading about how she was in Italy, and it's just irritating when characters are like, oh, I'm imagining everything, and they're not. There's no chance that they are.
Yeah, Bella's so ineffectual she can't even be awake, right?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we're gone over.
All right.
So we should do some plugs. Check us out on internet.com.
www.internet.com. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean. Is Literary AF.
Whatever you're listening to this on is fine.
Yep.
You can just keep using that service.
We're on Facebook, Literary AF. We're on Twitter, LiteraryAFPod. Our Gmail is literaryafpod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah, so give us a thumbs up, play I don't know. Whatever you do online, just do it to us. And yeah, it was we're going to be doing a special fan mail episode if we ever get fan mail.
If you send us an email, we'll probably read it.
Actually, I cannot promise that I will read any emails we receive.
I'll read everything that we receive.
Daniel will read it, and if it's really good, she'll tell me about it.
Yes.
We know that we have some audio issues. That's what I was going to talk about at the beginning. I totally forgot to.
Right.
We're having some echoing with one of our mics. We think we got it fixed, but there's a really good chance we didn't.
It's a work in progress.
If the audio is still bad, it's not our fault. I'm actually going to go on a limb here and say, President Trump, this is all him. He's the one who's making our audio bad.
The American president has ruined the audio for this Canadian podcast.
Yep, I'm
I can agree
throwing
with
him
that.
under the bus.
Sure.
He has really done it this time.
Yes.
Him and Trudeau, they teamed up. They both doomed our audio. Yeah, so follow us on Instagram. The one thing we don't have.
Don't have Instagram now.
Follow me on Instagram.
You know what I didn't mention was the best part of this book?
Oh.
I opened up the front cover and I found a bunch of temporary tattoos inside the front cover.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so excited, I lost my mind. I think if we reach 100 followers across all platforms, I will wear one of these temporary tattoos.
But what's the point when you already have them permanently tattooed onto your body?
No, I don't.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the flippy
Bye.
side.